You're listening to A Catholic's Perspective with the Religious Hippie. That's me, the podcast all about being a young Catholic surviving in a secular world. Around here, we pray first, pop off second. Whether you're struggling, thriving, or somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. So grab an iced coffee and let's chat. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the pod. I hope you guys are all doing well. We're currently hunkering down for a pretty bad snowstorm or winter storm, I guess. I don't know if we're actually supposed to get snow or not. I don't know what they're talking about. But you know, meteorologists, they get to keep their job because nobody can control the weather. So even if they're wrong, it's still fine. But apparently it's supposed to be happening this weekend. Actually, I think it's supposed to start today that this podcast is coming out, but hopefully you guys are all cozy and safe too. Go ahead and get settled, get a little iced coffee. I've got some Gloria Patri iced coffee with me. Yes, I know there's a snowstorm. I'm aware that I'm drinking iced coffee and there's a snowstorm. I don't really care because right now, today, it's like almost 50 degrees. So explain that to me. We love the Midwest weather. I don't understand it. It's like giving me whiplash. But yeah, it's crazy. And I've got my favorite candle burning. So it's a whole vibe today. And because today is the March for Life in DC, this episode is gonna be mainly pro-life based. So I'm praying for all of those who are at the march, that you guys stay warm and safe. Please be careful out there. But yeah, I wanted to go again this year, but it didn't really line up with any of my schedules. And to be honest, the amount of traveling that I've done over the last year has really worn me out. So I'm just trying to take it easy this time around. But I will say, I'm not exactly sure how to explain this, but the world just kind of feels different in 2026. I feel like I say that all the time because things are constantly changing, but in reality, it really does feel different to me. And every year I hope that this is the year we eradicate abortion and make it unthinkable, but each year kind of ticks on and we see small wins, which is amazing. I mean, we had that huge win of overturning Roe versus Wade, so that was amazing, but we still need to keep fighting because it doesn't end. You know, it doesn't end with the ruling being overturned. Now we actually have to go to the state level and keep fighting to end abortion in every state. So when I grew up going to abortion clinics to pray outside of them. We mainly did it with a couple of our like homeschool groups, but my mom always took us along. She never sugarcoated abortion to us. She never told us, it was just, a procedure. She never tried protecting us from the truth that abortion murders babies in the womb. And I'm really grateful for that because I grew up knowing the truth. And then even in high school, when I went and became a bit of a lib and thought gay marriage was fine and all this other stuff, I always held on to the truth that abortion was murder and was never okay in any circumstance. I know there are like a lot of people who want to shelter their kids from the scary truths of life. And look, I get it. Kids are innocent. I understand having that protectiveness over them, but if you don't teach them, the world will, and the world will always lie to them. So today I wanted to talk about the liturgy of life, basically, like how do we move beyond just changing laws and just actually make abortion unthinkable? How do we build a culture where a woman or a man even who is in a crisis sees a miracle instead of a burden when it comes to a child? Because there are situations where the woman wants to abort but the father doesn't, and unfortunately the father has no say, and that's really, really sad. And I've seen some of those videos and it's heartbreaking when you watch those because he apparently has no decision, even though he was a part of that making process, the baby making process. So yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed kind of like the landscape shifting. I mean, it's 2026, okay? And over 63% of abortions, they're not happening in clinics anymore. Shocker. They're actually happening in dorm rooms, in bathrooms, and they're basically calling it healthcare by mail. Think about the irony of that for just a second. The same people who talk about community and sisterhood are selling young girls a way to be completely isolated in their darkest, most terrifying moment. And the big abortion movement has moved into mailboxes and they're selling this private solution. But what they're actually doing is abandoning women and causing deaths. The amount of women who have died from the abortion pill are way too many. No woman should ever have to go through that. And yet so many have died because of it. And it's just so sad to hear those stories because they are so preventable, 100% preventable. And as a Catholic, like, I don't just want abortion to be illegal. I want every woman to know that she is never alone, that we are fighting this corporate machine that profits off of their fear. And when a corporation like Amazon or Disney, for example, offers to pay for a travel benefit for an abortion, okay, but then they won't give a mother 6 months of paid maternity leave. Seriously? Are you serious? They just want you back at your desk, not holding your baby. They want you to keep grinding away to make them more money in this corporate rat race. And they'll replace you like that. They don't care. They literally don't care. And we need to see through this smoke and mirrors and just realize that this is just another way that they like to keep women small and they like to keep us silenced. And I see so many parents making these drastic changes as soon as they find out they're pregnant. The wife quits her job to stay home with the kids because she can't bear to be away from them. And they make it work, on one income. And sometimes it's actually cheaper on one income, because of taxation and all this other stuff. It's crazy. But you know what? Others are not as fortunate and they have to work in order to have their children. And either way, for a country that's supposedly very child friendly, it really has a funny way of showing it. The womb is the only place on earth where two souls occupy one body. And that is a miracle, and they're treating it like it's a disease. And that is just, it grinds my gears. But before we get further, and before I grind my gears even more, I want to tell you guys about Gloria Patri coffee, because being a coffee snob is absolutely no joke. I'm constantly let down by Starbucks, yes, even Dunkin', and a bunch of other places. So when I decided to start making my own coffee at home to save money, I knew that I needed a brand I could trust with quality and taste. And I'm so glad that I found Gloria Patri last year, because their Trinity bundle is a lifesaver. Max loves the light roast for his pour overs, and I love the medium and dark roasts for my espresso drinks. So try them today and let me know what you think. Go to gloriapatri.com and use my code HIPPIE10 at checkout. That's HIPPIE 10 at checkout. Okay, so now I want to pivot and I kind of want to talk about this personhood debate. We're just seeing so much confusion around IVF and frozen embryos right now. And as a Catholic, we have to stay consistent, okay? Life doesn't start when a politician says it does or when a heartbeat is loud enough for a machine to hear it. It starts at conception. We need to be consistent with that. That tiny microscopic spark at conception, that is a masterpiece. It's a soul that will live forever. And if we can't protect the smallest among us, we lose meaning in life and the value of life. I don't even have to mention the euthanasia problem right now. They're crafting twin pods now so that couples can die together. It's madness. And yet they're trying to treat it as though it's normal. And that is how they infiltrate, okay? That's how they get into our minds, because they step too far over the line. We say, no, that's not right. That's wrong. So then they take a little step back, not far back, but we deem that acceptable enough, and we let them be. And then they do this over and over and over again until they get where they want to go. They inch closer and closer to godlessness and insanity, and yet we don't notice. And then those of us who do notice, we do see what's going on, we feel completely powerless against it. But we need to remember that we aren't powerless. We have God on our side, and we know that Satan runs the earth. Sure, he's the prince of this world, but God has Satan on a tight leash, okay? So we need to stay faithful. We need to pray and fast for the conversion of the world. That is what's going to change everything. Even if we aren't alive to see what our prayers actually do or how they benefit the world, that is going to change everything. So make sure you're going to Mass, make sure you're receiving the sacraments, make sure that you're doing what is proper to your state in life, because what you are doing will impact the world, whether you realize it or not. And we need to be working for the kingdom of God. And okay, one of my favorite authors, Carrie Gress, she just came out with a new book about, I forget the title, it's like Wicked something. But she wrote the book, oh my gosh, why can't I remember it? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. It's The Anti-Mary Exposed, one of my most favorite books. I highly, highly suggest you guys go and read it. And I'm going to say it because she says it all the time and I love her. Modern feminism is a scam. I said it. Yep, it's a scam. They told us that in order to be equal to men, we had to be able to kill our children. They told us that fertility was a disease, that we had to suppress or destroy this disease. They're asking women to mutilate their souls and their bodies to fit into a world designed by men who don't want to be fathers. I'm just being honest here. I'm not hating on the men. There's really great ones out there. I married one of them. But modern feminism empowers the bad men, and women fall for it every single time. Because real power is our ability to bring life into the world. Our bodies aren't broken, okay? They're not broken because they can get pregnant. They're amazing, the fact that we can get pregnant. It's a gift, you know? And we don't need to change our biology to fit into the workforce. The workforce needs to change to fit our motherhood, if you can even do that. To be honest, sometimes it's not even worth it. Sometimes you should just be a mom. But just don't let the world tell you that, what's the word I'm looking for? That you're regressive because you want to protect your baby or because you value modesty and tradition. Choosing the narrow path, choosing to say yes, like Mama Mary did when she was young and scared and, unsure of what the plan was. That is the most punk rock rebellious thing you could possibly do, okay? If y'all ever listen to Avril Lavigne, that is the most Avril Lavigne thing you could, okay, maybe not Avril Lavigne specifically. It's the most punk rock thing you can do, okay? So stop being flexible for a culture that doesn't actually love women. They don't love us. They don't care about us. We need to take priority, we need to really figure out our child's priority, what we can do to help them, and not what the world is asking from us or what the world's norms are and things of that nature. We really do need to fight back against it. And I think there are a few ways we can do that. I think part of it is making pregnancy centers a little more accessible. Like, you can volunteer your time, your money, your possessions to crisis pregnancy centers to help women in need who might have no other option, honestly, and they might be afraid of what being pregnant means for them. And hopefully through your help and volunteer and items and whatnot, it'll help them see the gift that this baby really is and take away that fear that they have about the unknown, because it is scary. It can be scary, and you don't really know exactly what they're going through, but you can alleviate some of that fear by giving them the resources that they need. And even just sharing about crisis pregnancy centers is super, super important. There are a lot of women who just don't even know that those options exist, honestly. And so we need to be better about getting that information out there. And then also we need to heal the wounds. I feel like for women who have had abortions, maybe you're listening and you've had an abortion. Just please know that God's mercy is a literal ocean. I highly suggest you check out Project Rachel. It's a place of healing, not judgment. And I believe truly that we make abortion unthinkable by becoming a place of healing instead of judgment. And so Project Rachel is a great place to heal if you've been hurt by abortion, and you've been struggling with that. And then after all of that stuff, I think, we should be safety nets for other people. For example, if you see maybe a girl at mass who is looking overwhelmed with 3 or more kids, just offer to hold one of the kids, or simply tell her, she's doing a great job. If your neighbor's pregnant, offer to buy her groceries and help with housework. Community is just really, really important. And the most important thing is prayer. It's our greatest weapon, the rosary especially, because we're in a spiritual battle. This is a spiritual battle, okay? And we need spiritual tools to fight this war. And the rosary is going to be your best friend. So yeah, I think we really make abortion unthinkable by becoming the community that the government and the corporations refuse to be. We have to be so full of love that these women feel like they have hundreds and thousands of hands reaching out to help carry them and their children. Unfortunately, I do think that COVID really destroyed our ability to relate to one another and to help one another. It's really, really sad actually to think about, but I say, excuse me, at the grocery store, and I just kind of get a blank stare. Like they're not even there. It's really eerie, honestly, and they still don't move. So then I have to just like squeeze past them and they just stare at me the entire time like I'm not even real. And this has happened on more than one occasion on a daily basis. So sure, some people might be high because weed is legal here and that's disgusting, but that's for a different topic. But it's just weird how often it happens. And I think it more has to do with the phones, to be honest. It's just like zombie NPC behavior. I don't know how to describe it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we need to make a conscious effort to help those around us. And that doesn't only go for pregnant moms. It can go for an elderly neighbor, a sick friend, a stranger who can't reach something off the top shelf. Raising my hand because I'm kind of short. But there are plenty of opportunities for us to just be neighborly. And yet I feel like we pass them up a lot because of the awkwardness or the whole like, it isn't my problem mentality. Whenever those situations set in though, I always try to ask myself what I wish somebody else would do if I was in that position. And yeah, okay, it's going to be awkward, but you know, that's just in the moment. And in the long run, it's really important that we don't forget that side of our humanity, which is helping others. Just the other day, actually, I was doing laundry. We do coin laundry at this laundromat down the street. And there was a young couple that walked in with a lot of laundry, like a lot of laundry. And I had a lot of laundry too. So I had one of the biggest machines, which is like almost $6 to run, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. And almost all the other machines for the load size that they had were completely taken, but mine was almost done. And so I just called over to them and said, hey, you know, mine's almost done. You guys are welcome to have it once, you know, my laundry finishes. It's about a minute. And, you know, because they didn't know that my laundry was almost done, but I just offered it to them and they really appreciated it. So yeah, so simple, yet so helpful. And, you know, we just take those moments for granted. I could have easily just let them figure it out on their own. I didn't have to say anything, but I did because, you know, it's so simple. It's so easy. It literally didn't take anything from me. And there are so many opportunities like that we pass up every single day because we think it might be awkward or it's not our problem.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
So just remember that, and just remember that helping people is not awkward. It's something that the world has taught us is awkward, but Jesus teaches us that helping others is very, very good, and we should be doing that all the time. So now that I've gotten, I guess, the biggest bulk of this podcast out of the way, I want to talk about some ways that you can help in the pro-life movement. I know I kind of mentioned some above earlier, but I just feel like it's important to mention some more because the pro-life movement is growing every single year, and I get asked a lot of questions about how I can get involved, about how, you know, young people can get involved. So the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is to follow Live Action if you're not already. This is not sponsored. They didn't ask me to do this, but Live Action has more information than other pro-life organizations that I have personally seen. And I really, really respect Lila and the work that she does for the pro-life movement. And I've been on her podcast. She calls me her sister, but not her sister because I'm Amber Rose and she's Lila Rose. And so we're sisters, but not sisters. And, you know, I've been on her podcast and I've attended multiple Live Action events. And, you know, so not to be biased, but in my opinion, how they do things is how I believe it should be done. And they offer great resources for young people and all of that stuff. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to mention, obviously, is, I kind of mentioned this before, but at its core, We need to remember that this is a spiritual battle. So we aren't just fighting laws, we are fighting for hearts and souls. So when you go to Mass, offer up maybe a Friday Mass for mothers in crisis pregnancies. Go to adoration and spend an hour before the Blessed Sacrament praying specifically for local abortion providers and women entering those clinics for change of hearts. And then, of course, the rosary. Really lean on Our Lady. Pray your rosary outside abortion clinics as often as you can. All of this stuff, so important. So important. Receive communion for mothers who are in crisis pregnancies. There's just so many things you can do spiritually for these people that can just really make a difference. Next, a common reason women choose abortion is because of a lack of support or because of coercion. And we have to remove the I can't do this and replace it with hope and replace it with help. So again, pregnancy resource centers, these are just, they're local heroes, genuinely. And they're going to need more than just thoughts and prayers, okay? They're going to need diapers, formula, and most importantly, your time. Volunteer as a mentor or a driver, do sidewalk counseling courses. These are very, very helpful, especially when you're on the street and you're face to face with a mom who might be walking into an abortion clinic. So important that you guys stay informed. Check your parish, join the USCCB initiative. And if there isn't one at your parish, be the one to start it. Who says you can't start a pro-life group? It's about turning every Catholic church into a place where a pregnant woman knows that she will find a village and not judgment. That is what we need. Also start studying pro-life apologetics. Basically, you need to learn how to explain the biological reality of life and the philosophical equal rights argument. So focus on the acronym SLED, S-L-E-D, size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. This just shows why these differences don't change our inherent human dignity. I learned so much from Trent Horn's book, Persuasive Pro-Life, and he actually just put out a second edition, and it's amazing. Highly suggest. It's especially great for the pro-choicers we're dealing with today who clearly know it's a baby, don't care. That book has helped me so much. And then, of course, always acknowledge the difficulty of the situation when it comes to these crisis pregnancies. People are more likely to hear what you have to say if they first feel like you have compassion for them, you're listening to them, and you find some sort of common ground. So, that's just so important to keep in mind. And then there are some other things that are kind of harder to do, I guess, to an extent. But, a lot of universities, a lot of even high schools sometimes have pro-life organizations that you can join. Otherwise, there's like Students for Life, and there's a few other places you can look up. Honestly, Facebook groups are also a great place to kind of find like-minded people. But foster care and adoption are a huge part of the pro-life ministry. Now, not everybody is called to adopt, but everybody is called to help support those who do. Could you provide a meal for a family? Could you help fund an adoption? Could you spiritually adopt a child? All of that stuff is very, very important. And then, supporting ministries like Project Rachel. We need to be people of mercy. We need to be ready to welcome home those who are hurting after an abortion with open arms and the sacrament of reconciliation. It can be so difficult because I think a lot of the times, we view these women almost as the enemy in some way because they're the ones who are killing the babies. But we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what these women have been through. We don't know who's coercing them. We don't know anything. And so it's really important to always go in with an open mind and to have compassion and mercy with these women. But yeah, those are just a few of the many things that I feel like we can do to help end abortion and make it unthinkable. But it really does require, each and every one of us to step forward and to help in some capacity. Maybe all you can do is pray outside an abortion clinic once a month. That is something, okay? Maybe you can knit hats for babies, for, pregnancy centers. That is something. It takes all of us to care, to pray, to support women and families in need. And it really does take a village, but it can start with you, genuinely. It can start with you. And I'm going to leave you guys with this amazing quote from St. John Paul II. You know, he's one of my favorite saints. "The ultimate test of your greatness is the way you treat every human being, but especially the weakest and most defenseless ones." Thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. Don't forget to rate, share, and follow this podcast, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye! This podcast is produced by Amber Rose and distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright by The Religious Hippie. Any previously trademarked or copywritten content is used by permission. Information and opinions in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Be sure to visit the official website of The Religious Hippie at thereligioushippie.com or find me on social media for other unique content. Thank you.